Before age 5, your child is not learning how to behave. They are learning who they are in your presence. And if you've been focusing on instructions, correction, and boundaries, thinking that's what builds a well-adjusted child, I need you to hear this. You might be building compliance, but you're missing something far more critical. Your child's brain under 5 is not wired for logic. It's not designed to understand because I said so, or to remember complex rules. It's wired for something else entirely: emotional safety. And in these early years, your child is not absorbing your lectures, they're absorbing your nervous system. Let me explain what that means, because this is where most well-intentioned parents get it wrong. When your toddler throws a tantrum, refuses to listen, or melts down over something that seems trivial, your instinct is probably to correct the behavior. Stop that. Use your words. We don't act like this. You think you're teaching them how to behave. But neuroscience shows us that under age 5, the part of the brain responsible for logical thinking, impulse control, and following complex instructions, the prefrontal cortex, is barely developed. It won't be fully mature until their mid-20s. So when you're trying to reason with a 3-year-old in the middle of a meltdown, you're speaking to a brain that literally cannot process what you're saying. What your child's brain can process, what it's designed to absorb during these years, is emotional information. Am I safe? Does this person help me feel calm when I'm upset? Can I trust them? And here's the most important part. Your child learns the answers to these questions not from what you say, but from how you show up emotionally. Dr. Bruce Perry, a leading neuroscientist and child trauma expert, explains that children under 5 are in what he calls a use-dependent stage of brain development. Their brain is shaped by what they experience repeatedly. If they repeatedly experience a calm, regulated adult when they're dysregulated, their brain learns to regulate. But if they repeatedly experience a stressed, angry, or overwhelmed adult, their brain wires for stress and reactivity. This is why your tone becomes their future inner voice. The way you speak to your child when they're struggling, when they've made a mess, when they're not listening, that voice gets internalized. It becomes the voice they use to talk to themselves for the rest of their life. If your voice is harsh, critical, and frustrated, that's the voice they'll use on themselves when they make mistakes as adults. But if your voice is calm, patient, and reassuring, even when setting boundaries, that becomes their foundation for self-compassion and resilience. So, before we go any further, if this is already shifting how you think about these early years, I need you to do something. Subscribe to the Parenting Blueprint right now, because we're going deep into what actually builds strong, emotionally secure children, not just obedient ones. This isn't about giving up boundaries or letting your child do whatever they want. This is about understanding what your child's brain actually needs before age 5, so you can parent strategically, not just reactively. Now, let's continue. Let's talk about why behavior control under 5 often backfires. When you focus primarily on obedience, on making your child comply, stop crying, sit still, listen the first time, you might get short-term results. Your child might learn to suppress their emotions, to hide their struggles, to perform compliance. But research in attachment theory, pioneered by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, shows us that children who are raised with a primary focus on behavioral control without emotional attunement often develop what's called insecure attachment. They learn that their emotions are not acceptable, that connection is conditional, and that safety depends on pleasing others. As these children grow, they become adults who struggle with emotional regulation, who don't trust their own feelings, who have difficulty setting boundaries, and who often people-please at the expense of their own well-being. They were obedient children, yes, but they became anxious, disconnected adults. And this happens not because their parents didn't love them, but because the focus was on controlling behavior rather than building emotional security. Here's what emotional security actually looks like in early childhood. It's when a child knows, without question, that when they're upset, scared, angry, or overwhelmed, their caregiver will help them. Not punish them for the feeling, not dismiss it, not demand a stop immediately, but help them move through it. Dr. Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry and co-author of The Whole Brain Child, uses the phrase, connect before you redirect. This means that before you correct a behavior, before you set a limit, you first acknowledge the emotion your child is experiencing. You regulate them first, then you guide them. This is the difference between control and containment. Control says, stop that right now. I don't want to see this behavior. It prioritizes the parent's comfort over the child's emotional state. Containment says, I see you're upset. I'm here. You're safe, and we're going to get through this together. It holds space for the child's big feelings while still maintaining boundaries. Containment is not permissive. You're not saying the behavior is okay. You're saying the feeling is okay, and I'm going to help you manage it. Research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child confirms that children develop the capacity for self-regulation through co-regulation. Co-regulation is when a calm, attuned adult helps a distressed child return to a state of calm. Over time, through thousands of repetitions of this process, the child's brain learns how to do it on its own. But if the adult is consistently dysregulated, harsh, or dismissive during the child's distress, the child's brain doesn't learn self-regulation. It learns suppression, avoidance, or chronic anxiety. So what does this look like in real life? Let's say your 3-year-old has a meltdown because you said no to a snack before dinner. The behavior control approach might sound like this. Stop crying right now. You're being ridiculous. No snack. And if you don't calm down, no dinner either. The emotional containment approach sounds like this. I know you're really upset. You wanted that snack and I said no. That's frustrating. I'm right here. Let's take some deep breaths together, and then we'll have dinner soon. Notice what happened in the second approach. You didn't give in. The boundaries stayed. No snack. But you acknowledged the emotion. You stayed calm. And you taught your child that their feelings are manageable, that you're a safe person to have big feelings around, and that they don't have to face emotional overwhelm alone. That lesson is far more valuable than immediate compliance. Now let's address the practical reality of this, because I know what many of you are thinking. This sounds good in theory, but I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm triggered when my child melts down. How am I supposed to stay calm? And that's the most honest, important question. Because here's the truth. You cannot give your child emotional regulation if you don't have it yourself. You cannot be a calm presence if your own nervous system is constantly activated. This is why the work of parenting children under 5 is as much about regulating yourself as it is about guiding your child. Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, co-author of The Whole Brain Child, emphasizes that parental self-regulation is the foundation of effective parenting. When you're dysregulated, when you're reactive, your child's mirror neurons pick up on that. Mirror neurons are brain cells that cause children to unconsciously mimic the emotional states of the people around them. So if you're anxious, your child feels anxious. If you're angry, your child absorbs that anger. And over time, your emotional baseline becomes their emotional baseline. So, how do you regulate yourself before correcting your child? Here are evidence-based strategies. First, pause before you react. When your child does something that triggers you, take 3 deep breaths before you respond. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which calms your stress response. In those 3 seconds, remind yourself, my child is not trying to ruin my day. They're having a hard time and they need my help. Second, notice what's happening in your own body. Are your shoulders tight? Is your jaw clenched? Are you holding your breath? These are signs that your nervous system is activated. Consciously soften your body, drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, breathe slowly. Third, check your thoughts. Are you catastrophizing? They never listen. They're going to grow up entitled. I'm a terrible parent. These thoughts escalate your stress. Replace them with reality-based thoughts. This is normal toddler behavior. Their brain is still developing. I can handle this calmly. Fourth, repair when you don't stay calm. You will have moments when you yell, when you're harsh, when you react instead of respond. That's human. What matters is what you do after. Go back to your child and say, "I got really frustrated earlier and I yelled. That wasn't okay. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry." This repair models accountability, teaches that relationships can survive conflict, and shows your child that no one has to be perfect. Studies on rupture and repair, particularly the work of Dr. Ed Tronick, show that secure attachment is not built by being perfect. It's built by repairing disconnections when they happen. Children whose parents repair after moments of dysregulation develop resilience and trust. They learn that mistakes don't define relationships and that safety can be restored. Now let's talk about what you're actually building during these early years when you focus on emotional containment instead of behavioral control. When a child experiences big emotions and has a trusted adult help them through it repeatedly, they learn that emotions are temporary, manageable, and not dangerous. This becomes the foundation for handling stress, disappointment, and challenges throughout life. You're building confidence. When a child's emotions are validated rather than dismissed, they learn to trust themselves. They learn that their internal experience is real and worthy of attention. This becomes the foundation for decision-making, self-advocacy, and healthy boundaries as they grow. You're building emotional intelligence. When you name emotions for your child, "You seem really frustrated right now," or "I can see you're feeling sad," you're teaching them to identify and articulate what they're feeling. Research shows that children with strong emotional vocabulary have better mental health, stronger relationships, and greater academic success. And most importantly, you're building secure attachment. When your child knows that you are a safe, predictable source of comfort and regulation, they develop what psychologists call a secure base. From this secure base, they can explore, take risks, and develop independence, knowing they can always return to you when they need support. So, let's bring this all together with what this actually means for how you parent a child under 5. It means that before you focus on whether your child is listening, sharing, or sitting still, you focus on whether they feel safe with you. Safe to express emotions. Safe to make mistakes. Safe to struggle. Because a child who feels safe is far more likely to cooperate, to trust your guidance, and to develop the internal resources they need to navigate life. It means that discipline, when it's necessary, looks different. Instead of punishing emotions or demanding immediate compliance, you set boundaries with empathy. "I know you want to keep playing, and it's time for bed. I'm going to help you." You hold the limit while acknowledging the struggle. You become both firm and warm. Research by Diana Baumrind on parenting styles shows that authoritative parenting, which combines warmth with clear expectations, produces the best outcomes in children: higher self-esteem, better emotional regulation, and greater social competence. This is distinct from authoritarian parenting, which prioritizes control and obedience without warmth, and from permissive parenting, which offers warmth without structure. It also means that you recognize the difference between a child who needs correction and a child who needs connection. If your child is acting out, the first question is not, "How do I stop this behavior?" The first question is, "What is my child communicating through this behavior?" Children under 5 don't have the language or cognitive capacity to say, "I'm feeling disconnected from you and I need reassurance." Instead, they might cling, whine, or act out. They're not being manipulative, they're being developmentally appropriate. And here's the most liberating part of all this. When you focus on emotional containment rather than behavioral control, parenting actually becomes easier. Not immediately, because it requires you to do your own emotional work. But over time, you'll notice that your child has fewer meltdowns, cooperates more naturally, and comes to you when they're struggling, instead of hiding or escalating. This is because you've built a foundation of trust and safety. You've taught their nervous system that you are a resource, not a threat. Before I close, I want to address the fear that some parents have when they hear this message. If I don't focus on obedience now, won't my child become undisciplined or entitled? The answer is no. Research consistently shows that children raised with secure attachment, emotional attunement, and co-regulation are more self-disciplined, more empathetic, and better able to delay gratification than children raised with harsh discipline or behavioral control. This is because they've developed internal motivation and self-regulation, not just external compliance. So here's what I want you to take away. Before age 5, your child doesn't need a behavior manager. They need a regulated adult who can hold space for their big emotions, set boundaries with empathy, and model the emotional regulation they're still learning. Your calm becomes their calm. Your patience becomes their inner voice. Your containment becomes their confidence. This is not permissive parenting. This is strategic emotional architecture. You are building a human who will carry your presence inside them for the rest of their life. Make it a presence of safety, not fear. Make it a voice of compassion, not criticism. If this message resonated with you, if you're ready to parent in a way that builds emotional strength and not just obedience, subscribe to the Parenting Blueprint right now. We're here to give you the science, the strategies, and the support to raise children who are secure, resilient, and emotionally healthy. Share this video with a parent who's exhausted by tantrums, who's questioning whether they're doing it right, who needs to hear that connection is more powerful than control. Because the world needs more emotionally secure adults, and it starts with how we show up for our children before age 5. You are building their foundation. Make it strong, make it safe, make it rooted in connection. That's what they need. That's what will last.